Welcome to Senior Spot. My name is Jenn Quinn, and I'm so happy to be your host, to be able to share some of the resources that we have right here in our surrounding communities to be able to best support our seniors. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Dorothy Potts, and she is a hearing instrument specialist with Zounds of Westford, which specializes in hearing. So welcome, Dottie.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Great, and it's so wonderful to have this business right here in Westford. And you know, hearing is obviously incredibly important to everybody of every age. But I would love to hear the story about Zounds and how this company came to be, and give us a little bit of background.
Sure. The company was started by a gentleman named Sam Thomason. He has a daughter named Kate, who, as a toddler, started experiencing hearing loss. So after purchasing many sets of $6,000–$7,000 hearing aids,
Wow.
Sam, being an entrepreneur and an engineer, decided he'd had enough, that he was going to design hearing aids that were perfect for his daughter. And the main complaint with hearing aids is often the background noise. So he was going to design something that was affordable and that also provided that suppression of extra sounds that people don't like to hear. So that's how it all started about 12 years ago. He has now developed, I believe it's 57 patents that, they're very specific to the Zounds technology, which does set them apart from some of the others.
Okay, so that's interesting that you mentioned in technology is all the rage, and so, you know, with that, what is the special type of technology that has been used that makes it so different?
Well, number one is that sound suppression. So
Okay.
the noise suppression is a huge thing in the Zounds hearing technology. I do have a set here to show you. So the other thing that sets his hearing aids apart is that he offers rechargeable batteries.
Oh, wait a second. Okay, say that again.
Rechargeable batteries.
Okay.
So no more changing batteries once a week. These are rechargeable. They're set into a charging unit. And in addition, you are able to control the hearing aids with a remote control. So that all comes together. So this is the hearing aid. And at night, all you need to do is brush off the tip of these hearing aids. It's very low maintenance. And set them into the charging unit, and the next day they're fully ready to go. So
Wow.
eventually those batteries do need to be changed. We do that in our office. We change them for the customers, and they receive those batteries free of charge for the life of the hearing aid.
Wow, because I can, from my own experience with family members and with our clients, you know, the batteries and the replacing of the batteries and the background noise and misplacing them are
That's
all,
a great point.
I would say, some of the biggest challenges with it.
They are, and that's a great point, because this is put on a bedside table or someplace safe. So they literally take them out of their ears, brush them off, set them in here, so you always know where they are.
Yep.
They're either in the ears or they're in the charging unit.
Absolutely.
So this has been a great help. Also, as we all age, you know, sometimes people experience that neuropathy in their fingers or arthritis, and it makes it very challenging to change those batteries every week.
It does. They're very small. Fine motor skills go as you age, and like you said, with the neuropathy. And you know, let's just face it, batteries are expensive.
Well, they are expensive, and if you think of it from an environmental standpoint,
That's another good
if
point.
you compare the number of batteries that needs to be used typically in a pair of hearing aids over a year, and you have that little pile of batteries versus 2 or 4 batteries, it's huge. I mean, those go into landfills and, you know,
Right.
other areas. So the rechargeable aspect is a great one. People really appreciate that.
Well, yes, and the remote control, I've never heard of something like that.
Yeah.
And I know that that's another, you know, challenge, is that even just turning them up. You know, some people will turn them up and they turn them off by accident. Then they think they
Exactly.
need a new battery, and it's kind of a cycle. So that helps to alleviate some of the manipulation.
Well, what's really nice about this also is that you can turn the volume up or down and be ear specific. So you can turn it just up in your right ear.
Okay.
So if you were sitting next to someone who was a quiet speaker on your right, you could just go to your right ear and turn the volume up or down, whichever you need it to do, and it doesn't affect both the hearing aids. And then at night, again, you just put that in the charger and you're all set to go. The next morning, these all light up green, so you know.
I like the visual.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's great.
It's also very convenient, you know, if you're sitting next to a family member that you don't want to listen to anymore.
You
Right?
actually can.
You
You
just
can
turn that
actually
ear
mute
down.
them. You can you can push quiet and you can actually mute the hearing aid.
That's a huge benefit.
So, yeah, we don't use that for that purpose.
I don't know, though. That could be something that would be very enticing to some people.
This is true.
So that is, those are some really great features, very unique in terms of making it a lot easier for people to be able to manage and to be able to maintain
Exactly.
them.
Yeah.
Because as you know, as we age, things get a little more challenging in that way, and it certainly seems like this system makes it a lot simpler.
It is. It does keep it very streamlined and very easy.
Great.
Yeah.
So, you know, going along with some of the challenges as we were just talking about, what are some of the challenges that you come across? You know, when people come into Zounds, and I know that I've seen the advertisements, that free hearing screenings and things like that, which are great. What are some of the challenges, people not wanting to be accepting of the fact that they need to have hearing aids?
And that is a huge challenge because, first of all, we deal with the fact that people are in denial, and typically it's family members who say, Dad, you know, you really need to do something about your hearing. We're always having to repeat ourselves. Once they've heard this enough, then they'll consider coming in and having that hearing test done. More importantly, though, what we like to do is educate people. And we like to educate them on the consequences of not treating their hearing loss,
Okay.
which is a huge deal. You know, people go and get their eyes tested every year or two. But it's rare to have a physician say, you really need to go get your hearing tested. We are encouraging everyone over the age of 55 to 60 to get a baseline hearing test done.
Baselines are important with so many medically related.
Exactly,
you know,
because then we
symptoms.
know if your hearing is in the normal range now and 2 or 3 years down the road you start experiencing hearing loss, we can say, wow, here it was at this date, 3 years later, this is what you have for hearing loss. But at least you know then, you have that baseline done. Since we don't charge for the hearing test, we do encourage everyone to do that.
Well, and it's nice to have no obligation and an unbiased opinion. I think that sometimes when family members are, you know, they might not be as patient and might be irritated with the fact that they're having to repeat themselves, so they get to the point where it becomes, you know, a battle of the wills and wanting to give in.
It causes stress.
It causes stress, and you know, and it's difficult to be able to, you know, come to terms with that you might need some assistance. So again, going to you versus having a conversation with your family member, you're unbiased, you're neutral, and you're going to give them the education that they need that's specific to them.
Exactly. The other thing I do like to say is if a family member can accompany the spouse, the mom, the dad, whomever it might be, it's always best because then you're educating them both. And then they feel like they have the support of that family member once they've heard all of the information, and they can make a better decision on whether or not they want to treat this hearing loss if they in fact have one.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned consequences of hearing loss, and you know, I think there's some very obvious ones, but I would love to hear, you know, maybe some stories or some specific examples about consequences of losing your hearing.
So the consequences of untreated hearing loss is what's really important because it takes typically 5 to 7 years for people to actually acknowledge. So by that point, they could have a significant hearing loss. And because the sound comes into our ears, it's collected through our ears, it's actually processed though up in your brain. So if that hearing loss goes untreated, you do run a risk of your brain forgetting how to hear those words or particular letters.
Interesting.
So then your ability to process speech really starts to degrade. In addition to that, they are finding very close links to cognitive issues.
Okay.
Because
Well,
again,
if you don't hear something, you can't process.
exactly.
And therefore,
so it's that processing ability starts to slow down. We can see this when we do our word testing. So that's evident when we do word testing, and people who have had hearing loss for a while, that process has already started.
okay.
So unfortunately, that can also be misunderstood for other ailments, such as Alzheimer's and dementia.
Right.
They're finding there's a correlation between those, the hearing loss that's been untreated and those situations.
Okay. No, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of it from that perspective. And certainly we don't want things to be misdiagnosed. It doesn't lead to the right treatment.
Right.
So being able to define what it is critical. Now, when, I'm sure that you have some stories about really positive changes and impact that you've had on people's lives. And I'd love to hear, some of the stories that you could share.
Let me tell you about one specifically that always stands out in my mind. I had a husband and wife couple come in, and apparently she'd been complaining about his hearing loss for a number of years.
So you find that it's often the spouse or the family member
yeah.
that's more concerned or complaining about it.
Absolutely, because if we think about it, it's generally such a gradual process for the hearing impaired person that they just adapt. They start reading lips. They start watching hand motions. You know what I'm saying?
They're compensating.
They absolutely, they compensate. So this couple came in, and I always, get a really thorough history on them and ask them about their lifestyle. And he ended up purchasing hearing aids, and his wife was thrilled. So they go home, and then we always do a follow-up a week later.
Sure.
So he came in alone for the follow-up, and I could tell he was a little emotional as he sat down, and I thought, oh my gosh, he must not like the hearing aid. There must be something going on. As it turns out, through our conversation, I learned that he loved birds and bird watching and listening to birds, but because of his high frequency hearing loss, he was
missing out
he was
on that.
missing something that was very passionate to him. So he actually, the day he got the hearing aids, went home, and they live in a very wooded area, and he went and sat on his deck.
That's a gift.
He literally had tears coming down his face, saying, I went home and I said to my wife, I had no idea that all of these different types of birds were right in my backyard. And so for him, that was life altering for him, because it gave him so much pleasure.
Those simple pleasures
Yeah.
make all the difference in the world.
And those that we take for granted.
This is true. That's an excellent point. And what your simple pleasure is different from mine. And certainly hearing impacts your life greatly.
So much.
So what a special
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we
story.
see things like this happening all the time. And the fact that the communication in the household can diminish, because if the spouses are frustrated because one's trying to talk from another room and the other one can't hear them, and they either think that it's selective hearing, as we all, always accuse our husbands of.
Which, like a lot of times it is, but
But generally, if they have that hearing loss, they can't be spoken to from another room.
right. So it helps to even strengthen the relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
And the
Absolutely.
comfort level. And, I've noticed that some people with hearing loss, if it's untreated, will tend to withdraw, might not participate in a lot of social activities.
The social consequences are really huge, because you're right. They will withdraw. They'll isolate themselves. It can lead to irritability and depression. And the isolation part alone is not good. As we get older, we want to be social with our peers. And if you're not able to hear, you don't want to be the person sitting there and smiling and nodding and pretending that you're participating, but really not grasping what people are saying.
Yeah, that's an uncomfortable feeling. I experienced for a couple of weeks about a year and a half ago, I lost the hearing in my left ear for about 2 weeks. And it gave me a whole new perspective on how important and how much you rely on your hearing. So knowing that there are solutions for people, I was fortunate it came back.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's to have these options and to have them be very convenient and so easily managed is a real plus.
And very affordable. And I know that's a big concern with a lot of people is the price of hearing aids. But they're, again, going back to the Sam Thomason, that was his goal.
Right.
He wanted to create something that everyone could afford, that most people can afford. And he's done that. He's done that because the difference, is really huge price-wise between other hearing aids.
And what a great legacy that, that he's going to be leaving behind. And so many of us are motivated by doing things to help our families and children. And so, that's...
And his daughter, Kate, with the hearing loss, I just read an article today that she is now in college and going to be an electrical engineer like her dad, which is kind of fun.
They follow right in his footsteps.
Exactly.
And who knows what the next advancement will be.
Oh, and
right?
they're huge because it's like a computer chip. They change all the time.
Yeah.
So they're getting better and better.
Right. And that's actually, an interesting point is, some people will have a set of hearing aids for a lot longer than maybe makes sense. Perhaps it's not the right adjustment for them. Perhaps it's not a comfortable fit. And the technology just might not be there to make them as adaptable as possible. Right. So, that's another plus at maybe going and having a screening.
Absolutely. And, and they're making strides all the time. So if you have a set of hearing aids now that's 5 years old, the technology has changed so dramatically that it would be worth going somewhere to just have a trial, just to try them in the office and see how it sounds compared to what you're already on.
So is that an option that people have?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So we do the
Try
hearing
before
test.
you buy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have them come in and have a hearing test done, and then we're able to program a set of hearing aids right then and there. You could actually be tested, fit, and walk out with hearing aids within 2 hours.
Wow. Now, so obviously they're all customized. How do you make that, how is that made possible that someone could walk in and walk out and have the whole process completed?
So what happens is that prescription for their hearing loss goes into an algorithmic process in the computer and gets programmed into the hearing aid. And then through the software, I'm able to make some adjustments on that if we need to. They're programmed for their specific hearing loss. Okay. And then we have them walk in different listening environments, not just in the room where they're tested.
Sure, like walk outside and listen. You guys are right on 110 in Westford, so you walk outside and there's plenty of noise.
There's a lot of noise out there. We want to make sure that they're very comfortable. We do a test with my voice or preferably with a family member's voice to make sure that in all that noise they can still hear, which is a really awesome thing to witness.
And everybody has a different size ear. My ears are very small. Someone might have large ears. So how do you accommodate for sizes of their ears?
Great question. That's a great question. So there are different length cables so that we are sure that this cable is the proper length for you. So we have a lot of different sizes. In addition to that, the little dome or tip that goes onto this hearing aid is determined by your ear and your ear canal. Some people have a really tiny ear canal and they have a little extra bend in that ear canal.
Right, so it's not just the external, it's the internal
it's also the internal
measurements. Okay.
And so we can put a really tiny tip on that so that we can be sure that it gets in there properly.
Yeah, because I would imagine that some people struggle with wearing them because they're just plain uncomfortable. They haven't been customized, they haven't been, retrofitted to what their structure is.
And that's the problem with buying an amplified system online or in the pharmacy. Those aren't made for you. They're not programmed for you. The size of those tips is often very large, and so you get a soreness in your ear. We've seen this numerous times. And it's basically an amplifier, so although it's better than nothing, because they're kind of keeping that area stimulated, it's not the best solution.
Okay. So in terms of the baby boomers and, any suggestions that you would have around helping to preserve their hearing. There's a lot of environmental, aspects that might impact and might affect hearing and hearing loss. Do you have any suggestions around that?
So A lot of us attended a lot of very loud concerts growing up.
This is true.
And we didn't know better. Now we do. And so, first of all, I would suggest to anyone that wears earbuds, particularly young people. I mean, I know I've gone to the gym and I can hear someone else's music.
Oh, right.
That is way too loud. It's way too loud, and they're damaging their eardrum, because if you think about the proximity between where that sound is being dispensed in their eardrum, it's just hammering the eardrum that whole time. There have definitely been studies that have been done which prove that it causes hearing loss.
Interesting.
So we have a whole generation of young people, not only young people, but especially young people who are hooked into their music all the time.
Absolutely.
Who are creating a situation that can't be resolved. It can't be undone. So that's the first thing I would say, is to be cautious when using your iPhones and hooking yourself up all the time.
Sure.
That's one thing. The other thing is preserve the hearing that you have. So anytime someone's doing outdoor work, they're using a snowblower in New England for months on end. Please make sure that you wear some type of ear protection. If you're able to and can get a nice commercial set of noise eliminating, that would be fantastic. But at least put something in your ears to protect them, whether it's an ear plug or something. Mowing the lawn, any kind, especially shooting, people who go out and hunting or go to a range. In the range, they often have those nice headsets anyway. But if you're going hunting, you really should have some ear protection in.
Absolutely.
So that's my recommendation, and especially with that music component, because so many people use those earbuds.
Oh, I mean, you walk down the street,
exactly.
in Boston, and probably 8 out of 10 people you walk by will have that, and especially the younger generations. It's definitely, I could see why there would be that direct cause and effect, a negative effect that would impact you, and then we need to remind the younger generations that their hearing isn't going to always be what it is now,
and they're not going to get it back once they've lost it,
right?
Which is really the message. Speaking of causes, I wanted to just bring up a couple of other really quick things, and that is, we have a perception of what causes hearing loss, and the hearing loss causes could be anything from loud noise exposure to genetics, to ototoxic drugs. Of course, the aging process, but there are some other causes that people aren't familiar with that I really want to focus on. And that is diabetes is number one. So if someone has been diagnosed as a pre-diabetic, for example, perfect opportunity to go get a baseline done. Because you may be one of those diabetics that has hearing loss as a result of the diabetes, cardiovascular disease.
And then having a baseline, you're able to track it.
Absolutely.
To be able to see if there's any significant change in which warrants needing some hearing aids.
Cardiovascular disease is another thing that, because of the poor circulatory system function, it can affect your hearing. It affects vision. It can affect your hearing as well.
Wow. So we have, on many levels, the impact that it can have on many parts of your body. And vice versa, where you have certain diseases that will come hand in hand with a potential hearing loss. I was not aware at all about the diabetes and the connection, and that's with the society and with the habits, eating habits, and the rise of diabetes. I think that's really important for our community to know.
It's very important, and if you if the viewers are computer users, there's a great website. It's called the Better Hearing Institute. And it's a great website, and it has all kinds of information about all these topics that we're talking about right now, the causes, the symptoms of hearing loss, which, even though we're in denial, I think many of us realize things are not exactly the same as they used to be. And so, but it also gives you other symptoms in there. It gives you the consequences of untreated hearing loss, what we've been talking about today. So it's a great website to go to, Better Hearing Institute.
Oh, that's great. And so One other thing, Dottie, that I would love to know is walking into Zounds. Can you walk me through when I walk in the door? What is the process going to be?
Okay.
Because I think it's comfortable for people to know when you open the door and you walk in, what's going to happen.
Well, the first thing I will tell you is it's not intimidating at all.
I can clearly tell that there's not an intimidating bone in your body.
No, so it's very comfortable, and it's not a high pressure situation at all. Basically, all we want you to do is to get your hearing tested. We'll explain to you the entire results of the test. I go over everything from what we've just done to the results of the test, step by step. So everyone that comes in to our doors, they leave with a lot of knowledge.
Great.
We also let you try the hearing aids in there. So it's a process of coming in, filling out the paperwork, talking to Liz in the front desk, at the front desk, and talking some more with Liz at the front desk, because you'll want to be engaged with her. And so having that conversation and then coming to see me, I get all of the information, what situations you seem to be struggling in. Your lifestyle has a huge impact on the level of technology that we talk about and decide upon. And then from there, programming a set of hearing aids for you to listen to. Going out into the 2 or 3 different listening environments so that you can see how it sounds.
Right. So people that aren't ready to make the jump but are ready to come in for the hearing test,
we encourage them to do that.
That seems very comfortable to me, because there's no pressure, and it might be something that they're researching. Everyone should do their due diligence in researching what's best for them.
Absolutely, yes. I'm a shopper myself, and so I think it's important that you go into this with knowledge, that if you feel the necessity to go and try a few different places, do that. Do your homework, and then come to see us, because I think you'll feel really comfortable.
Well, it certainly, what I've learned in this short bit of time is incredibly helpful for me personally, and hopefully for our community members. And I'd like to be able to thank you, Dorothy, for coming.
Thank you.
Telling us about the different, the technology that makes a huge impact, as you shared the story. So Zounds of Westford.
Zounds of Westford. May I just show this?
Please do.
So this is, being the holiday season, we have the gift, give the gift of hearing. And it's just a gift certificate for if anyone wants to purchase that for a family member, if you know that a family member is struggling or possibly has a need.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Dorothy.
Thank you so much, Jen.
So glad you're here in
See you.
Westford.